shows relationship or summarize large collection of facts of data. However, it's the most misused verbal support. That's why we're here. We're here to give you some tips in using it. First, Hoyan will talk about 3 different kinds of statistics. Second, Eunju and Semin will give you some guidelines. Last, Yuyeon will summarize our presentation. Now, let's start with Hoyan.
Several statistics can be grouped into 3 types according to their functions. First, magnitude. Second, segment. Third, trends. Let's begin with magnitude. You can use statistics to describe the magnitude of a problem. For example, if your topic is excessive water use in Korea, then I recommend you to say 1 Korean uses the water that 70 Somalis use in a day. Like this, statistics that compares figures would help you understand the significance of a problem. Second, segment. When you cover very complicated matter or even making a single point, you can use statistics to break it down. For example, if you talk about high suicide rates in Korea, you can divide the suicide rates by age. Then explain what certain factors cause each age group of people to suicide. Like this, statistics itself help isolate the parts. Third, trend. Statistics are especially useful when describing the trends over time. For example, if you're a nutritionist and talk about obesity, you can use obesity rates of 10 years ago, 10 years ago, and this year to show rapid rise of overweight people. Like this, listeners would understand the trends over time by the realistic statistics. I presented 3 types of statistics by function. The next speaker, Semin, will give you a guideline for about using this useful statistics.
I will introduce 5 guidelines. The first one, appropriate time. The second one, the topic is has to be directly related. The third one, the graph has a long period of time. Fourth, the statistic has to be representative. And the fifth, the difference should be meaningful. Now, let's go on to the time. The time of statistics should be appropriate to the purpose of the speaker. Let's assume that you're going to go shopping to buy some ramen. Then you should know the price of ramen. But it is important. You can know the price of ramen in 2012 and 1963. The price of ramen in 2012 is about 480, but the price of ramen in 1963 is just 10 won. So the time is important. The second, the statistics should be directly related to the purpose of the speaker. For instance, the increasing number of members in either pen cafe doesn't always mean the increasing participation, because there can be some members who are indifferent to participate in. So you should use other statistics. Third, the statistics should be conducted with long period of time. In other words, the long period means the longer research data means more reliable data. Next, the result should be representative. The process of doing research should be objective, so the result is objective, representative. For instance, if you wanted to do a popularity vote in a class, then you should do a survey from the all members of the class, not including or excluding some people. Last, the difference in statistics should be meaningful. The statistic shouldn't have error. So the difference, which means important result, can have a useful conclusion. The next presenter, Eunju, will talk about rest of the guidelines.
And next, save units. For example, in math exam, set score is more higher than the function, but you cannot conclude that function is more difficult than the set. Perhaps how long you study rather than the content was more difficult. 7. Reliable source. Not like neighbor intellectual 지식인, and a more recent source. If your presentation is about an approval rating of presidential election, your data should be recent to give audience a better and accurate information. 8. Likely to understand. Statistic is a tool to help audience have a better understanding, so it should be easy to understand. For example, 18,000 is more visible and easy to understand than 18,234. 9. Explain the meaning and inference. Look at this chart. Can you understand the meaning of these numbers? As you see, without meaning of numbers, it's just a number. But if you act like, so this year, Lee Myung-bak is likely to become our president, and then it became a data. At last, make sense. Your data, your statistics should make sense. And the last presenter, Yu-yeon, will summarize our presentation.
Did you listen to our presentation? During our presentation, we find the three functions of statistics. First, it describes the magnitudes of the issues. Second, it helps us segment of the parts. Third, it describes trends over time. Also, we found out some tips when you are going to prepare the presentation using statistics. Do you remember the tips? Then let me remind you by short words. First, appropriate to the purpose. Second, related to the purpose. Third, long enough period. Fourth, representative. Fifth, meaningful. Sixth, unit in the same. Seventh, reliable and recent. Eighth, be easy to understand. Ninth, meaning and inference of data. And last one is checking. You know what I'm saying? Okay, if you consider and apply the skills and tips to your presentation, we believe that you can prepare more effective and logical presentation. It was all about the statistics, and thank you for listening.